Welcome, my name is Matt, aka RoadJedi88. We're getting into Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes, mods, Padme Amidala. Okay, so, this is gonna be a long breath. Long wind. Padme Amidala does make her first appearance as Queen Amidala in The Phantom Menace. While you are within The Phantom Menace, you can also check out the books. Star Wars Episode 1 Journal, specifically Queen Amidala. In it, she explains that she was 14 years old when she was elected as Queen of Naboo. Naboo was a democracy monarchy government. Meaning, they had queens. They elected the queens. Palpatine really wanted Naboo so badly, he should have been elected queen. Instead of trying to evict her out of her home with a bunch of battle droid squatters, freeloaders. Anyways, that was just kind of a personal joke. But Star Wars Episode 1 Journal, Queen Amidala, she does explain how she was elected into that position. She did come from a respected family. I think they're more kind of focused in the art direction, I thought, but I could be wrong. They weren't I don't think they were really too in touch with the political aspect, but they were still a respected family within Naboo. Excuse me. So she was elected queen. She was considerably just very intelligent and very wise beyond her years in her younger age. It was one of the reasons why she was given that chance. It was also considered a traditional thing to elect young girls as queen for Naboo, so it wasn't just only her. This was kind of like a traditional thing for Naboo, for some reason. She met Anakin Skywalker, who was 8 years old at the time when she was 14 years old. So for those I have heard in movie reactions ask about the age difference, she was 14, he's 8 when they first met. So that's what, 8 years difference? No, 6 years. 6 years difference between the two of them. She's 6 years older than Anakin. Continue on into Episode 2, The Attack of the Clones. That was 10 years later. So, a couple complications that she had in The Phantom Menace was the Trade Federation, but then there was also the division between the Gungan natives as well as the Gungan natives as well as the people in Naboo. And the people weren't exactly native to Naboo. They in the Gungans' viewpoint, they raided the planet and just took over. Kind of like England and the Native Americans situation. That mentality. And that's why there was a little bit of a division between the two cultures. But with Jar Jar's help and the situation of the Trade Federation, which provided an opportunity with Jar Jar's help to bring Naboo and the Naboo natives, the Gungans, together with the people in Naboo. Go on into Episode 2, you find out she took Jar Jar under her wings. She recognized that he was clumsy because of immaturity, is how she saw it. She figured, if she took him under her wings, try to build on the potential that she did see, that somehow she was able to see, that many of us struggle to see about him. You will notice in Episode 2, he was a little bit more calmed down. And a lot of it is due to the responsibilities that Padme had given to Jar Jar, kind of pushing him in the direction of having to mature a little bit more. It gave him more give a person more responsibility. They kind of learn the need for discipline, and they can better themselves. And that was the approach she was trying to take with Jar Jar. Unfortunately, in that Attack of the Clones, there is that particular scene where Palpatine is having a meeting in his office, taking advantage that Padme was not there because she had to run for her safety because of the bounty hunter that was trying to kill her. And she left Jar Jar behind for the first time, entrusting him to be her voice, as to substitute as her voice, hoping that in 10 years he had learned, he had grown, he had matured enough and knew her well enough to know what she would do in certain situations. Palpatine took advantage that he was still a primitive-minded, clumsy Gungan, right there in his office, having a meeting, knowing that the clones were about to be revealed. We're about to have the Clone Wars spark. Someone who knew and understood the problem needed to stay in office to oversee the success of the war. So, that kind of mentality. And we've seen this even in our own American history with certain presidents. Where someone gets elected an extra term just in the claim that, well, we have a war going on and he was in office when it started. He knows what's going on. Let's keep him here, But we've had that mentality even in our own world history. And they were kind of trying to play that card here in the Star Wars universe. But who would suggest the radical amendment of having Chancellor Palpatine be elected ultimate power to the Senate until the war was over? That was the discussion they were having right in front of Jar Jar in his office. And Jar Jar, he fell for it. This is why there is a fan hate for Jar Jar. It's not because of the clumsiness. There is that as a fan hate. But that's coming from people who don't pay attention to the story. The people who do pay attention to the story, the reason why there's a fan hate for Star Wars, not for Star Wars, for Jar Jar. There's a great passion for Star Wars. Hello. That's why I'm here. But the fan hate for Jar Jar, the biggest aspect is within the books. It's within the story itself. And it's the fact that he had 10 years to have grown, to have learned, to have done better. And he was, up until that point, where he did fall for that trap. And he suggested to the Senate, where the Senate was viewing Jar Jar. They didn't really know Jar Jar that well. But they knew he represented Naboo. They knew Padme was the representative senator for Naboo. They trusted her voice. So they assumed that when Jar Jar spoke in her absence, he was speaking for her. And they trusted that. When he suggested that they vote to keep Palpatine in office through the duration of the war that was about to start. And they went for it. They basically fell for electing to have Palpatine, one of the most dangerous men in the galaxy, have total power of the galaxy, and through that war, which is what Palpatine wanted. Palpatine wanted that. He just needed an idiot to pull that string, and Jar Jar was that idiot. That's the fan hate for Jar Jar. That was probably a clumsy person can be tolerated, okay? But when it is creating a dangerous situation, it's kind of hard to respect a person like that. And as someone who's been in service work, he's a service veteran. I've worked alongside where I found myself actually trusting my opposition more than my own allies. I've been in that situation. It is a betrayal of trust against my brothers that I was supposed to trust. Even more so, scary as hell to be in that situation, not knowing if my wife's going to end up being widowed in that moment. And there were some close calls. But that little personal history aside, it's part of where my PTSD does come from. Elements of it. But yeah, it is a dangerous situation to have someone who's just not getting a grip of the maturity and can't read in between the lines of someone's trick against them, you know? And Jar Jar, he was that bait. He was that tool. He was that moron that Palpatine needed to represent, to operate as a substituted voice for someone that everyone else did trust. But if anyone knows Padme, she's also having this picnic with Anakin, discussing how she is completely against dictatorship, which is essentially what Jar Jar promoted as her voice. He practically single-handedly betrayed her and didn't even realize it. Padme did point out to Anakin that she had been, she'd served 2 terms as queen. Each term was 4 years. So she did 2 terms. She did 8 years as queen, right? So there's a 10 years difference. They offered her a 3rd term because of how well she did. And unlike Palpatine, she turned it down. But she did still want to be a part of the Senate. She wanted to help represent the democracy of the Senate, of the Republic. And she really wanted the democracy to be defended a little better. So she'd been in the Senate she'd been Senator of Naboo for 2 years after her 2nd term as queen. She kind of continued carrying Jar Jar along with her, all that stuff, but trying to work away from that bit of the storyline. She does try to battle the idea of her emotions for Anakin, and kind of watching the emotions he goes through, kind of ends up kind of breaking her a little. Technically, in the Jedi Order Code, they're not supposed to be in a relationship with anyone at all because it falls under the line of attachment. Jedis are not allowed attachment. Attachment is a thing of greed. And even if you were to follow like the spiritual concept in our world, our universe, our real life, attachment is viewed as a thing of greed. In the spiritual principles that is taught, that's kind of in a universal concept. George Lucas did study theology in college, so that's where he's getting a lot of this from. So, yeah, he's not supposed to be even trying to date anyone or have a wife or any relationship with anyone in that romantic manner. She knows it, he knows it, but they end up eloping. And of course, we see them trying to hide their marriage throughout the whole Clone Wars TV series. Up until she reveals her pregnancy to Anakin, which they still try to hide it. I've always been suspicious of Obi-Wan kind of suspected something going on between Anakin and Padme throughout the Clone Wars. I've always been kind of suspicious of this because he's not stupid. We know this about Obi-Wan. He is not stupid. And look at the number of times Anakin kind of wink, wink, hint, hint to Obi-Wan. He would keep hush, hush if Obi-Wan wanted to have a thing with Duchess Satine, right? I mean, we kind of caught some of that in the Clone Wars series a little. If we watched it close enough, it was like, dude, just because you got this going on over here, you're gonna suggest this for your master? I mean, that's kind of what I picked up on with it in the Clone Wars TV series. But you know, that is a code of the Jedi Order. I feel like that kind of does get trashed. Now, my understanding, George Lucas wanted to keep that all the way through, even with Luke. But Luke does get married by the end of Young Jedi Knights to a woman who was a Sith woman. She was a Sith. He converted her. He managed to convert her to the Jedi side. Marries her, and they have a son named Ben Skywalker. Now, I've mentioned this in some of the other videos, but the subject is Padme Amidala. She does reveal eventually to Anakin about her pregnancy. I've got a lot of movie reactors who watched the original trilogy first, following the fan suggestion of what is it, the Machete Order, as they call it. Honestly, I'm not against the original trilogy first and then the prequel trilogy, or but I also kind of like watching some first-time fans watch the prequel trilogy first before going to the original trilogy, just to see a different perspective of their take, an alternative perspective. I like seeing both angles of it, to be honest. I prefer to keep the sequel trilogy out, but I'm coming from the George Lucas era generation of Star Wars. But they completely missed the part in Return of the Jedi when Luke reveals to Leia that they're brothers and sisters, and on top of that, twins. They come back into the Revenge of the Sith. Oh, she's pregnant with Luke. And Leia. I mean, there's not just one baby in there. But anyways, yeah, she's pregnant with both Luke and Leia. Both Luke and Leia. Not just Luke, not just Leia. Both Luke and Leia at the same time. They're twins. Which is interesting because even Leia ends up with a twin set, Jason and Janen. Must be a tradition in the women in that family. But Revenge of the Sith, she becomes pregnant. Anakin starts getting some foresight fed into him, possibly from Palpatine. It's a good bet it was Palpatine. Feeding the foresight because Palpatine does have prophetic abilities. He also has telepathic abilities as well. And he could have very well been slipping those into Anakin. Anakin did have the Force ability of foresight. He also, I don't know if he so much had telepathic abilities. Yeah, he does, because he tries it with Luke in The Emperor Strikes Back. So yeah, he did have telepathic abilities as well. I mean, he was a very powerful Jedi or Force user, so I wouldn't rule out a number of Force abilities he had, equipped within him. But of course, he falls to the dark side. And basically, Palpatine kind of utilized Anakin as the tool to kill Padme. That's basically what he did in the end. I mean, Anakin freaked out, understandably. And he did not handle things at all appropriately. None of it. And that was even with Yoda's warning to him. But Padme ends up passing away, and there's really not a whole lot of mention about Padme other than later on from, say, maybe the Glove with Darth Vader going on to the later post-Return of the Jedi books when Leia does go back to Coruscant after Palpatine's death. When Leia and Mon Mothma go back to Coruscant to try to clean up Palpatine's mess and try to establish the New Republic, she does do a little family tree history at that point. Now, none of these books actually had a specific name for their mother. There was never a name drop of Padme, but there was suggestions that Leia would do some family history searching of their family, and Luke as well at the Jedi Temple. He would do the same as well, and in respect to getting information about their dad. But that's pretty much Padme, I would say in a nutshell, but I also warned it was going to be a long-winded one. And I would not rule out if I missed any details, because there's a lot. And the best I know to suggest is kind of dig into the books, watch the shows. They do fill in a lot of story about Padme. A lot. Coming back to Padme Amidala. We can definitely see coming back to Padme Amidala. We can definitely see a lot of her mother in Leia, or Leia's mother in her. When you see Leia's contentiousness, we see where it comes from. Anyways, if you go to my first video in my mods and character playlist, I definitively break down the various different types of character roles as well as the various different types of mods and their purposes, and explain what it is we are doing with those mods when we apply them to the characters. So if you go to swgoh.gg and look at the in-game tips, they both recommend modding Padme Amidala, who is a support character with just health. So she's a leader in Galactic Republic. Now she does have attacking abilities. She's not just purely support or just pure leadership. I did just recently unlock her. You have to get her in the journey guide. And so I'm still gonna build up phase for her. But well, there's dealing out physical damage. We have critical damage mods. Interesting that that's not once mentioned. Dispel all debuffs on light side allies, and they recover 50% health. Well, okay, now I can see that health in that. Sure. Does she have to be just pure health? That is a question I raise. Deal physical damage. Well, gee, another physical damage to target enemies and stun them for 1 turn. What is wrong with this? Applying some critical damage with that health? More health. So we're kind of going back and forth here. Honestly, if it was me, and I want to test this out, I might regret it. If you want to follow my suggestion here, I'm sorry if you end up regretting it too, because I promise you I will too. But she does have damage abilities. She's not just only purely health. That's great that we want to assign her to look after her allies. I'm not against that. I am all for it. But if she has damage abilities, we could be doubling her support character role. From the sound of it, we could be doubling on it. Could we cross-train her to be a tank protective character? That tenacity and defense probably wouldn't do those health abilities a whole lot of good. In this case. In theory. Can we make her a support attacker? You could try. I mean, if you want to do speed and potency, but there's really nothing in her abilities that suggests either of those would do her a whole lot of good. So, yeah, I mean, if you wanted to do speed, because her abilities do imply that she has effects on health, naturally. It would allow her to move a little bit quicker. In what she does. Could also have an impact on her attacks as well. But she seems more focused in the direction of health and damage. While she's good at what she does, I kind of like the idea of testing her out with some damage, just to kind of see how that might play out. But even if this is a fallback somehow, then yeah, maybe both the online players and the for SWGOHGG's statistical recommendations as well as the in-game tips, they might both be right. So in this case, I wouldn't entirely take my word for it, other than what I'm suggesting. Just taking into consideration what her abilities are showing she does. And going this approach with the health and critical damage kind of suggests that we are doubling her support character role position based on the abilities that she performs under. Dang it. We can get it to stick. We're definitely kind of going, like every other ability that's on her list is kind of bouncing between her ability to do damage and her ability to affect health. So, if you want to go triple health, you can do that, but if she has the capacity to fight, why hold that ability back? Why not push it forward just a little bit? That's my thinking. So, play around with it, see how it feels to you. It might not be the best of suggestions in the end. If it's not, then yeah, go with triple health. Maybe double health and apparent tenacity. In that case, in that sense, then yeah, go. If not tenacity, maybe defense, or maybe you can do health, defense, and tenacity. Because they're all in the protective sense, and that's almost what it sounds like. The in-game tips in swgoh.gg is acknowledging her support character role being more based for defensive features rather than offensive. If that is the case, if that's really how she functions the best in a battle, then yeah, either triple health or double health and apparent defense, double health and apparent tenacity, maybe health, defense, and tenacity altogether. You would need a pair of each. If that's really the direction we're looking at this, it may not necessarily have to be only triple health. But just suggestions, kind of play around, see how it feels to you, how it works, how it plays out. If you want any sense of an attacker side to her, then at best, and yeah, that critical damage suggestion. So, pick or choose, test them out, see how it feels. So, that's Padme Amidala. Subscribe to the channel, like the videos, comments, questions, suggestions down below. And thank you for following. May the Force be with you.